the fall of man, alas, is linked to the fall of the angelic world. Only yesterday, an elderly lady was asking what was the first order of creation, and by that she wanted to know what first happened in time. And she did have the perception that it must have been the angelic realm. And so we come into a universe where there is already history of a cosmic nature. The moment of that self-awareness of Lucifer, that he was similar to God because of his great gifts, being the greatest creature, and the moving of that into another sphere of independence, of will and thought and desired glory, was the cosmic jarring note of creation. Things for the first time started to go hugely, hugely wrong. We know, of course, that at that point an angel that was not the brightest of angels had this word, who is like God, indicating the correct nature of the creature. Michael, who is like God, and that he was given greater power, and that he rallied the angels in such a way that not all fell. Only a third. But these are around, a lot of them. They are able to move around. For the moment they're not all confined to hell, and therefore they are perennial nuisances to us, lesser creatures, as we see here in the Garden of Eden. Blame shifts then from Adam to Eve, from Eve to the serpent. But each time there is some kind of consent and fall, and we can't shift the blame indefinitely. God, of course, knew. God foresaw. But the angels were not given that fullness of beatification without a test, nor are we. And so the consequence is that there is always the risk. God sees that it is a greater good to have creatures similar to him who have a will, able actually to orientate itself against him, and he stands back in awe at what he has made, and so must we. We cannot aggress another will, or even oblige it. All we can do is pray for it, and love it into being, and have mercy upon it, not willing the loss of a single one. And so, in the disaster is the fixing, and we have the prot evangelium, the forerunning gospel, the announcing beforehand in the Garden of Eden. The serpent is often presented at the feet of the Immaculate. She will crush your head. The psalmist cries out of the depths, and this is often used in the context of the deceased. Only last night, just behind here, we had the prayers that are said every summer in the cemetery. And it is an occasion to remember those who are not remembered, those who are abandoned in purgatory, and for whom no one prays. Out of great depths in it, perhaps they may be praying for help. With regard to the church in Corinth, the apostle has had to struggle with it from the beginning. Indeed, there is a verb in Greek used to Corinthianize, and it meant to behave like Corinthians, which wasn't the most glorious way to behave morally in the ancient world. And so this is where the gospel had to take root against all odds. But something of that exists in our time by now. For what are people doing when they choose freely to spend much time in impurity on screens, either in contact with live television or with that which is a link with hell on internet, by choosing bad material, or simply might be by not choosing at all, just passive vegetable gazing. And what enters in but precisely those demons who are only too glad to find an opened door unaware. But the Apostle does point out that the true issue precisely is that of eternity, and enjoying things as one might in the flesh in this world is limited. Indeed, people have a secret anxiety and sort of know it. Oh, what if there is something? People would prefer really that there be nothing at all. For we know that when the tent that we live in on earth is folded up, there is a house built by God for us, an everlasting home not made by human hands in the heavens. Le curé Vaz used to say, comme il est beau mourir quand on a vécu sur la croix. How beautiful it is to die when one has lived on the cross. And with regard to the world of the invisible, it comes out in the Gospel. Beelzebul, Lord of the Flies. Here we have the Pharisees accusing the Lord of using satanic powers to do his miracles. And as in the case of a church divided against itself, so also with regard to Satan, how can his kingdom stand? And so we need to be careful that we don't play the game of Satan by using our recreation to criticize and create factions, or just merely the mentality of criticism and judgment. It is the saints who are experts at this sometimes in conversation. There are certain special sins at which they are the experts, the sins of the pious. For the sake of God, of course, brilliantly creating factions. With regard to the use of time, it is important, for as St. Paul does point out, the optic is eternal, and that should have an impact on the way that we spend our day concretely. If at the end of the day one looks back, one can draw a graph. Quid hoc ad eternitatem, what this for eternity? That is, what value did this action at this moment in time have for eternity? And it's a question that mentally one can pose at the beginning of each action, or the discernment of whether it should be undertaken or not. We too easily undertake big chunks of things without reference to the divine will. And yet that time is gone in that action. And the evening, the day, the energy, the prayer, all is gone and cannot be recuperated. And that adds up. Time badly spent is life badly spent. And it occurs to one that the vast number of human beings who are not able to think for themselves because they are continuously bombarded by words of another, usually at fairly high speed and often of little value, is a great victory for precisely that Beelzebub who is not short of means of getting what he wants. A planet of civilized zombies is a great acquisition for hell. In Rome we had a very good course on communications, and it had to do, of course, with the media. citing Vatican teaching Inter Mirifica and so on, which indicated the importance of the gestion of the media, but we cannot get away from them. The pious can be over-Googled, they can be all the time listening for more, but not able to pause at a word. A continuous flow of words can damage the spiritual life. God likes a vacuum of words in which one syllable of His hits hard and has a great resonance. A mind full of ever-increasing words becomes opaque, and the Spirit of God does not like an excessive multiplication of words. The soul loses its simplicity. It becomes multiplex. I just conclude by quoting something which I wrote precisely during that very good course in Rome, indicating how we need to be in control of these spectacular means, which are, in the name of Satan, controlling us perfectly on his behalf. Media simply means means, and they can be means of carrying the fumes of hell or the rays of grace. It all depends on control. Control of keys, therefore self-control. Media. Means. Mediating meaning from afar. And moving many minds without a word. When moving on a leaf, or from a star, suspended in the air, where sounds are heard, by metal ears, moved by strange wavicles of patterns sent to tremble something deep in many breasts unseen. These particles of naught at night a mighty vigil keep, for gazing at a tabernacle new, adorers watch and wait, and there is seen not charged ions coming into view, but all of man and more upon a screen that holds a mesmered eye with other eyes agog upon a current in the sky.